Okay, we are recording. Welcome, everybody.
Happy Sunday, everybody. How is everyone? I'm guessing people will probably be hopping on. So, everybody excited for a new week? Everyone knows Make Room Monday's happening tomorrow again, right? For Canada and the US. So, yay. I don't know what time. It's usually been like early afternoon. I don't know if they've posted anything about it, but
We've had a lot of restocks, so that's good.
yes. Some of the stuff has been lasting longer in the US too. I don't know about up in the north, but we had some stuff actually sort of hold on for more than a day or so last week for us, which was good. So,
Don't you like how they went back to the old way of doing it?
where you mean it's like things just sort of launch when they launch?
Yeah, just when they
I think
come
so.
when it's ready, it on the site is much better.
Yeah, I think it like kind of cuts both ways. I think there's sort of like pros and cons to everything they've tried. And for one person that loves it, there's like 3 people that hate it every way that they've done it. So I think it's fine. It just requires everybody to like share it in the groups as soon as they see stuff. And then you guys you posted, I think you reposted the leadership call from Zach last week. And then there's another one tomorrow. I don't know. There was an email. There's another leadership call, which is the one that the company leads. Everyone is like welcome to. And those are usually just like a good overview of kind of like state of the union, kind of where things are at. They'll talk about like any promos that are happening, etc. So they're just a good like touch point check-in. But the one from last week, it sounds like there's obviously tons of inventory coming, which is good. Probably another couple of weeks of it being like pretty tight still, and then it sounds like sort of like getting into later June, the things should start to kind of like perk up a little bit, which would be great. So at least in the US too, the starter kit went back to like a normal kit, like there's a hat in it again and like normal items. So that was a good indicator too. That was Friday's kit, I want to say. Maybe it was like a completely normal looking kit, so yay for that. So
I
yeah,
got the email, Erin. It says tomorrow at 11 Mountain Standard Time, so 1 p.m. Eastern.
it's leadership. Okay, so that'll be the one that Zach does. And yeah, those are, well, everyone's welcome. And it's just sometimes Aaron speaks, sometimes Zach, sometimes both, whatever. Sometimes Jeremiah talks about like financial stuff. It varies. But those are always just a good like check-in time too. So I think for this week, what Courtney and I were talking about is, I guess a lot of people wanted to talk about recruiting and slash kind of like growing your network or your kind of like market if you're in like a smaller town or a smaller area or things like that, and kind of what that looks like. So I don't know if you guys that are on the call have like questions or certain things within those topics that you want to talk about. If you want to like, feel free to like raise your hand or send a chat message, whatever, to kind of like kick off any sort of like talking points. Anybody has any specific questions, concerns, ideas? Feel free. Looks like you can see, I have the chat open now so I can see that. Okay. Courtney, do you want to talk a little bit about recruiting since your group responded most? How do we recruit without spamming? Okay, that's a good one. So you want to, Courtney's exceedingly better at recruiting than I am, so tag.
Okay, so recruiting, it's personally like a passion of mine, and I think what has kind of shifted me from feeling spammy or like bugging people or pushing things on people is I never look at it that way. So I switch my mindset to how can I inspire others or make changes in others' lives, knowing that a good amount of the population suffer from debt, like myself, and that was one of the motivators for me to launch side gig. So knowing that I have a vehicle that can help them, it doesn't make it hard for me to talk about the business opportunity. So I think first, just switching the mindset around that is huge. Second, putting call to actions out and often. So people may know what you do or they may not, depending if you share it on, well, I'm big on personal page because that's where a good amount of people are. But if you're not talking about the business opportunity, I find people may think that, or they may not know that they can do what you do. So I find at least like 2-3 times a week talking about the business opportunity, and that can look many different ways, from like a call to action, like rep search or brand ambassador search, like a straight out call to action, how you can launch your own activewear shop, an activewear brand, talking about that, to as subtle as maybe how the business has impacted you. So being really open about that. And of course, not saying numbers because we can't share exact numbers, but it could be as something like, you know, for example, I've been laid off for 4 months. So I talk about a lot on how maybe I haven't had to put my mortgage on hold despite being laid off from my career for 4 months. Just like subtle little things like that that kind of pique people's interest. So I think talking about that quite often is really important, and often like 2 or 3 times a week, because not, you can post like on Monday and then on Wednesday a whole slew of different people may see that post. Like I wouldn't worry about people being like, oh, they're gonna that you're gonna annoy them from posting all the time, because chances are people that are gonna see your second post have never seen your first post that you made on Monday about the business opportunity. What else? I'm trying to think here. I don't do reach outs. I know it works for some reps, but I don't do that personally. Anybody that has ever joined me usually has come to me. And I think it's just through the posting, like, can I learn more about what you talked about yesterday on your page? Or what is it that you do? Because I think sharing sneak peeks of like the lifestyle in general, like if you're going live on your Facebook parties, maybe post a picture of you, you know, holding up clothes or something, and talk about the lifestyle. Like, I'm working from my basement and it's so fun to interact with people because I've been enclosed in these 4 walls for the past 4 months. Just things like that to kind of pique their interest. Another thing that I never do is I never say Zaya Active. So that's another thing about like attraction marketing and piquing their interest. If you put down like, I'm so happy like that I'm partnered with Zaya Active and I can grow my business from home, they can easily go and search Zaya Active and find another rep or find all the information on their own. Instead, I like to use like e-commerce shop, activewear shop, so that then they have to come to you to ask for information. They can't go and search the company that you're with and potentially go with someone else, or just sign up on the Zaya page. So I think it's key to pique curiosity as well. Consistency is huge. But I think the biggest thing of all is just not being afraid to talk about what it is that you do, like, and publicly, and what it's allowed you, and not just income, like community. Maybe since launching your shop, you've been more active because it motivates you to be more active. So things like that, I think has been really, really big. Just showing people what's possible, right? You're inspiring them. And yeah. Do you have anything to add, Erin?
You are much better at it than I am. So I think another place that you can find like rep possibilities though are kind of like the same sort of like networking idea. Same way that you can find like referrals for customers, I think you can find referrals for reps that way as well. I've definitely had some through that kind of process where like a friend, not even a friend, but like somebody that I was connected to through like a networking group or something like that was like, oh, hey, like so-and-so would probably really like to do that. She used to be with X, Y, and Z company, or like, you know, she's super interested in fitness and blah, 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 you know, let me connect you to, or so those kinds of things. The same way I get a lot of customers that way too, is more kind of like referral and word of mouth and things like that. But I feel like that can be a nice way to get reps for sure. Like party hostesses tend to be a great conversion. I personally don't have a ton of success with that. I have had reps come from being party guests, but I don't typically personally have a lot of people. I frankly, I don't do a lot of Facebook parties at Baseline anyway. But I rarely have reps come from that, but you'll see there's a ton of people like on our team that have done that. There's a ton of people on Diagals and things like that where, you know, and I do think, especially if you have somebody that has a really big party, right, where they have like a ton of rewards, then there is something to be said for saying like, hey, like you had a lot of interest in your, what you did, right? And like what we were doing. And so like kind of planting that seed, and maybe they don't do it then, but maybe it's something that they think about. Just cause like, you know, if somebody has like $1,000 or a $2,000 like party, right? Like they have people that are super interested, and, you know, so it's like, well, they can be my customers or they can be your customers, right? Like, and you could be making money from this too. So I think these are good ways that you can convert people without having to be overly like spammy or whatever. You know, there's also this kind of concept of like, there's people that will sort of like convert a lot of customers into being reps, and they'll kind of take that route where they'll have somebody who's purchased a lot and they'll be like, hey, like, you know, you've spent X, Y, and Z, like you could just have your own shop and like have your own discount. Like, have you thought about it? And I've tried that personally. What I have found in my experience is if people are interested in doing it, they will usually like come to you, as opposed to like the opposite. I haven't had a ton of success of like going to someone and having them be like, oh yeah, no, I think I will sign up, right? And I also think it's always good to remember that like recruiting people that are going to be good reps is really important, more so than just like numbers. Quantity, in some facets, quantity can be helpful, but quality is still really important. And so I do think it's important when you're like talking to people about the opportunity and like trying to build and grow your team, there is something to be said about getting the right people that are going to work really hard, that are really motivated, they're going to stay invested into it, as opposed to kind of accumulating a bunch of people that are just like discount reps that then don't really grow a team themselves and, you know, don't really actively participate and things like that. Like yes, you have some reps on your team, but like in the end, it may not, I don't know, it doesn't always help. It's not always like the best route. So I do think it's important to kind of like, you know, kind of think through who you're talking to and what you're talking to them about. And there's some people that are going to be really good customers for you, and there's some people that are going to be really good reps for you. And I think it's very important and very smart to sit down and think about like where, and you don't ever really know. Okay. I say this all the time. You never really know what somebody's going to do with a business. People can start super motivated and they can be super productive all throughout. People can start super motivated and then for a bazillion different reasons, not really do much. They can not do much for a long time and then all of a sudden start doing a lot. They can do a lot for a long time and then just completely quit. I mean, everything in between. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen, but I do think that it's important to be thoughtful about who it is that you're talking to, and kind of, again, it comes back to like connecting with them, right? Forming a relationship with them. What are their goals? What are their needs? You know, kind of where they're at in their life. Does this make sense, etc. And so that you don't spin your wheels on somebody that could have been a really good customer for you and helped you grow your personal volume business, and sacrificing that for somebody that joins as a rep but then doesn't really do much.
Yeah, and I think consistency is huge. Like even if you are like, you may get discouraged, like if you're putting call to action posts out and like they will get the least amount of likes, or comments than any post you put out. Like, so like if you put a post out of your kids, they'll get like a lot of engagement, and then there you are with a call to action. It won't get very many likes, or typically that's what happens to me. It doesn't get very many likes or engagement, but people are watching. For example, I've had 2 people reach out to me within the last week that I connected with like 15 months ago, because they were kind of interested, and they connected and they said, I'm ready now. And they don't like my posts, they don't comment on my posts. I have hardly talked to them through Messenger other than like 15 months ago. So the only thing that would make me realize that they're ready is because they've been watching the post, right? So don't get discouraged if you're not getting a lot of likes on those call to actions posts. Just keep doing them, because people are watching silently, and it's usually the people that don't like and comment that are the ones that are interested. So
I've had more, I've told people recently, I've had more of my business is very much, sales particularly is very much kind of cold market driven. But I've had in the last like month or two, all of a sudden, and again, I think it's because of the consistency that on the sales side, I've had kind of like this kind of like warm market thing happening where like people that I worked with like 10 years ago, a neighbor that I, again, like these are like old connections that all of a sudden have been like, okay, like I need some new leggings, or like, whatever it is. And so, it's again, like, and this is 2.5 years later, right? And like all of a sudden these people are like, okay, like now I want to try stuff, right? And they've known I've been doing this the whole time. But I think that again, the more consistent that you are and the more that you continue to kind of like, share it in a non like aggressive, non kind of like spammy, salesy kind of way, I think over time people definitely like sort of come out of the woodworks a little bit and will be like, oh, like what is this? Like, okay, I need some new leggings or whatever it is, right? And so whether it's sales or reps or whatever, I say all the time, like I think the fact that and again, like I actually don't post as much on my wall. I've done more in the past 6 months probably than I used to. I keep most of it in my group, but I've started putting more of it into my wall, making it more kind of like prevalent there. And like they say with any sort of like direct sales, people are like kind of waiting to see like what's about, are you really that invested in it? Are you really that into it? Are you successful with it? Right? Like people are kind of like watching and sort of like, what is this? And like, never heard of it. And, so they're just kind of like watching along. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, something will happen and they'll be like, oh, okay, like today I'm gonna, shop or whatever it is. But those things can be really significant. I mean, I had the one person that like popped up out of nowhere. I mean, she spent like $800 last month. Like, I mean, just, she bought like the shop basically. And she was like, okay, she was like now, and she ended up returning, which I knew would happen. I get nervous when people buy that much because I'm always like, I mean, something's not going to fit, right? Like as a brand new customer. So she ended up returning some stuff, but she now was like, okay, like, when this comes back, can you grab me one of those? Or like, if you see this, like, and just now we have like a system kind of set up where she just wants me to like order stuff for her in the back office that I think she would like. Right. And so again, like you just, these people will just kind of like pop up. Right. There's another like person that's in my Facebook group that's like a friend of someone that hosted a party for me like over a year ago. And she is the same way. She buys stuff almost every week of launch. And again, like she's like not even a friend of a friend. She's like a connection of a connection kind of person. But I think a lot of what you'll find is that as you kind of establish those relationships and as you are consistent and as you kind of network and show up for things and you stay within it, again, it's not like an overnight, like, okay, I have 40 new reps and I'm like, whatever. It's again, that slow kind of building process. But the more that you kind of like make these touch points and connections with people, whether they're in other businesses or you host dual events or whatever it is, that you kind of just build these layers, and you have to be patient with it because there's not very many people that can just like, send a couple of messages and have a bunch of reps that are just like, ready to go. Like that's not really what happens for most people. So in lieu of that, then you just have to be really, consistent in it, and you have to have a consistent voice and kind of a consistent brand, and you need to have something that like reflects you. And again, it's like I always use like Rand and Fields and some of the other big companies that kind of the basis for their marketing was posting before and after pictures, right? And like that was kind of the traditional like direct sales model, right? Which was just like stock photos and like a lot of the like health and wellness and fitness companies and diet, whatever, all of these things, right? And there's no personality behind it. There's no there's nothing to connect to it. You're just kind of like, okay, she had acne and now she doesn't. She was fatter and now she's skinnier. I mean, and that's the sole like kind of substance to it. And so I think where we have a really unique thing with Zaya is because you can be so personalized with it and so customized with it, that you really can incorporate that into your lifestyle and make it your own, so that when people are like seeing your stuff and they're interacting with you, that they are connecting like to you and not just to like some like stock photos. Which I mean, that's my personal thing always. I mean, there is a place for just sharing, the Wednesday launch photos, right? So that people can see what's launched and whatever. There's a place for that and you have to do that. But you can't build your business around that. It won't work.
Yeah, I like to think of, like, I think I've mentioned this before, but thinking of your social media account, whether you're primarily on Instagram or Facebook. I'm more on Facebook. But thinking of your social media as your storefront. So if you, and it has to do with a lot of posting, because that's how we get across to people. So I mean, if you are posting one day, but then you don't come back for another 3 days, it's kind of like putting up your clothes sign, right? So I try to have that analogy. And then people just love looking into other people's lives, and it's how they get to know someone. So before I like do my posts, I kind of think in my mind the life of Courtney, and I just share the life of Courtney on my social media. So maybe it's one day we're going for a walk, maybe the next day we're doing this, and you just kind of invite people into your life so they can kind of get to know you, right? And then credibility is huge, building credibility around the business. So things as simple as this call and talking about, or having a picture of the Zoom and how you're hanging out with people on Sunday night when you can't really socialize with anybody, but this is your socialization. Or credibility, like when corporate has events, even if you're not able to get there, but somehow sharing that credibility of maybe others that are there, or experiences from uplines that are there, and sharing all that stuff. And don't be afraid to talk about your rank advancement either, because that builds credibility. Talking about your achievements. So I feel building credibility really piques curiosity as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think another thing that's really important is just trying to kind of like use virtual networking portals as a way to connect as well. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And so, local, kind of business leagues, or, women's groups, or, whatever it is, moms groups. I mean, again, there's a million different ways that you can like, network in with people, but I do think it's really important to be able to like broaden your kind of general exposure and your general like touch points is, obviously, again, establishing relationships with people that, you never really know like exactly what that's going to be. Maybe it's customers, maybe it's referrals, maybe it's reps, whatever it is, maybe it's all of the above. And some groups are definitely more productive and more helpful than others. But I think kind of like, looking at that in your local, kind of area or community, if it doesn't exist, starting a group is a great thing to do. And again, with other women that are, have small businesses, whether they're direct sales or they just have other, small businesses, right, that they're doing. and just kind of creating some, partnerships with people. And, it's whether it's liking and kind of sharing stuff on social media together and giving people support that way, or, again, there's a bazillion different ways that you can kind of like do this and how it looks. But I think that's another great way, especially if you're in kind of like a smaller area, or, especially right now where everybody's sort of like cooped up at home and like kind of isolated and things like that, also is to kind of create more like virtual touch points for people. And so you kind of like broaden your community that way. And again, you never really know kind of what that's going to turn into. But for me, at least, it hasn't necessarily yielded a lot in the way of reps, but it's definitely been helpful for my sales for sure, in getting new customers and friends of friends and things like that. I think it's a great way to kind of like just broaden your reach a little bit. And then always keep in mind that, like, if you're in Canada, you can be reaching into the US and vice versa. The two countries are definitely accessible to both. And, you may have networks and pockets of people through family or friends or whatever it is that are in the other country. And I think it's great as another way to like broaden yourself out, and you can recruit from, both and things like that as well. So, depending on other like affiliations you may have or other things that you're interested in or whatever, they may, cause you to sort of cross paths with the US and Canada and vice versa and whatever. And I think it's great to kind of tap into that too.
I just see we have some questions here. Jenna was asking, is posting and suggesting joining and reach out's the best way? I think, like, for me, it's been posting, and staying consistent with posting, and just storytelling. Like, I try to think of the life of Courtney, if you know what I mean. So like the life of Jenna, and how mom life and the day-to-day, just inviting people into your life to kind of get to know you, right? Definitely call to action, so suggesting to join for sure. And then reach outs haven't done anything for me, but I know they've worked for like some reps.
Yeah, they've never worked for me. I mean, with some very, very small like minorities, but the vast majority, they have not worked for me. But Chrissy Tager's entire world was based in cold calls on Instagram. So they work for some, for sure. That's like her entire business. But me, not so much. And the thing is like, I know exactly what she writes. I know word for word exactly how she does it. And it works for her, and it like doesn't work for me. It never gets me anywhere for whatever reason. But I do a lot on Instagram, and what I have found about Instagram myself is that Instagram is a like slow burn, and it takes a lot of time. And I, in the past like few months, have started getting like some random new customers and things like that. But it is a like, you have to like work at it. You have to get followers. You have to like post a ton. You have to like really be exposed over there. And it's definitely, I like it, and I find it to be useful, but it's a whole nother animal of work, I feel like. And that's where I did all of my cold call messaging when I did it. And I would go in spurts where I would do it really a lot consistently, and then I would stop again, and then I would do it. And then so I went in spurts, but the last time I did it was probably 4, 5, 6 months ago. And what I started to find is people had already heard of it. Whereas like previously people hadn't heard of it and weren't interested. Now it was people had like already heard of it, had been in a party, have a friend that sells it, things like that. The exposure definitely of the people that I was messaging was like much, 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 much higher than what it had been previously. So, which is not to say that there aren't still millions of people over there that, have never heard of it and would be, good people to message and reach out to. But I just I kind of gave up on it. I just felt like it was a lot of work for very little return.
Yeah, I don't do much on Instagram either. But something that has been working for me the past month, and I don't know if it's because everybody's at home, but I've been taking some of my commissions and reinvesting them into my like page just by promoting it, and it has been getting like new contacts. So that's something that has been bringing in new contacts lately. And then Christy had a question. I also know that lots of girls are struggling to book parties or to get the thought of them out there. I have a good point on that one. I find, especially in your VIP group, when, I don't know if you do this, but when you have a hostess that has all this loot for like just over $100 or so, posting about that and being like, thank you, so and so for your order. I'm so happy you were able to get this and this and this at just over $100. I find that piques people's interest, and they're like, how can I get that? So I'm not sure if you're doing that, but that's a good way to line up some more parties. Even call to actions, like posting maybe some clothing and asking for people who would like to get some activewear at, I'm sure you already do that, activewear at discount. Do you have any good suggestions on that, Erin?
I don't do a ton of Facebook events. I mean, the vast majority of my sales at this point come from my group, and like referrals and like word of mouth kind of stuff and repeat customers. So that's kind of like the mainstay. I did a party this past week that was a girl who's been following me on Instagram for a while that like sent me a message and asked me if we do parties, kind of thing. Like, she's an Arbonne person. I was like, sure we do. It wasn't a great party. She had like a couple orders. Like, she'll get like, the lowest tier of rewards or whatever, but it wasn't like a huge thing. And I'll post occasionally in my group offering to like, do them or whatever. And for whatever reason, it's not a huge thing for me. I know a lot of people have had a lot of success in the last few months by pairing up with somebody from another company and doing like a joint event, where both companies are featured, which is a great way to do it. I personally struggle with that a little bit because I know a lot of people in a lot of companies that are like in my group that are also customers. And so I personally haven't done that just because I'm not sure how to pick, because it's like, if I wanted to do an event with like Beautycounter, like there's like 10 of them in my group that are all like customers of mine and like good customers of mine. Right. So like for me to pick just one to do an event with, I don't know. So that's been my personal holdup. But if that's not an issue for you, I think it's a great way to kind of like broaden your network and exposure and like, make new kind of cross-pollinating networks and things like that. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a great idea. I just think, again, like with anything, you have to be thoughtful about how you run your business. And I just know for me personally, the vast majority of like the major companies it's not like there's just like one person that like, I have a lot of people, and I wouldn't want to alienate 9 of them to do an event with one of them. And a lot of them I think would be upset by that. And I feel the same way because I have a customer who does Scout and Cellar, which is like a wine company. You guys don't have it in Canada, but it's here in the US. And she did an event with another Zaya person. And I introduced her to Zaya. She'd never heard of it before, like I connected with her. And I have a lot of like customers that have come through her, and like it's a whole thing. And so she like sent me a message and she was like, hey, I'm doing a party with this, person or whatever. Just want to let you know. And I was like, okay. I was pissed. Like super pissed. And so I always try to think about like, in reverse, like how would people feel if like I did an event with X, Y, and Z person, knowing that like, there's 4 or 5 other people that have really important businesses that are also good customers and really loyal people to me. So again, like with anything, I think everybody's business looks a little bit different, right? So like that's my personal sort of like hang up. And so that's why I haven't really done those. But if that's not a problem for you, or if that's not a position that you're in, it's a great idea. It's just for me personally, it's probably not a smart thing to do. But I do
I
think,
have, oh, sorry.
oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, have you guys ventured into like affiliate links? I call them affiliate links, but they're like VIP links for people. Because some people, they like the idea of the discount, but they don't want to do the party. Like they don't want to feel like they're bugging their friends. So sometimes I'll put call to actions out for an affiliate link. And so then they love the brand and they refer their customers to shop their own links. So like I have a girl who's qualified for the 1330 tier from just an affiliate link. She like sends her sister, her friend, and I think like at least half a dozen of people that have an affiliate link ongoing. Like they always want a new link. So I find that's a really cool way to be able to bring in new customers and also make those customers that are purchasing a lot really happy by giving them the discounts.
Yeah, I think those are great too. I don't have a lot of people. I have people that ask for them and then they like completely forget that they have them. So I offered it a lot and then I had like a bunch of people that like kind of forgot they had them but still shop with me. And so I finally just sort of was like, they just like kind of kept forgetting, I think, that they existed. I do think it's a great idea. I think it's a super smart way to use the hostess rewards for people that are not interested in, hosting an event or doing an online party or whatever it is. So it's harnessing the power of those. I do think is really smart. A lot of people will offer like a gift to people to like book parties with them. So they'll, 1 week it's a free bra, 1 week it's a free hat, 1 week it's a whatever, it's a $25 gift card, whatever it is. So that's another thing that you can think about too, is kind of a way to sort of like incentivize people to like, do parties with you. Obviously you want to do it in a way that's like affordable and not, costing you a ton of money. Because you don't want to spend a bunch of money on like parties that end up not being super great, right? But I have seen a ton of people that do that, which it's totally fine. It's completely fine to incentivize people to host parties. That's not like a problem with any of the policies or anything like that. So you're more than welcome to like use that technique also to get people interested in doing it.
Jenna has a question. It says, do you suggest having both like page and group? For me, I would say yes. Like group is definitely the place where, you like foster your seeds, like they're like your people. Serving, you could do a lot of serving in there. The like page for me personally, has been a huge asset, and is a good way to kind of connect to more people. So I would say yes, but I don't feel like you're like, oh, all these places to post. What I do is I post the same thing across everything. So like it makes it super easy. So like I copy and paste, of course, not right after one another because Facebook will like boot you out. But I share the stuff on pretty much the same things. But I think for me personally, a like pages really has been a good asset.
My like page is hooked to my Instagram. So my Instagram posts pull over to my like page. My like page is mostly Zaya reps that like my page. And so which is fine, but it doesn't really, like, for me, it's just sort of like, it's sort of there and I don't put a lot of effort into it. I haven't really like done sponsor posts and stuff like that, which is something that I could try to sort of like broaden it out a little bit. My group tends to be, again, kind of where I sort of like settle into things, but I do try to like make things as, kind of streamlined as I can because I do so much in Instagram and Facebook. So like when I post in Instagram, like in my stories, those I have it set so that they automatically save to my phone. And then I literally post them in my Facebook stories as well, as long as it, like, sometimes it's not every single thing, but like a lot of it I do.
You can link those, eh?
What's that?
You can link that.
What?
So it goes from your Instagram to your Facebook story.
it goes from my Instagram story to my Facebook business page story, but it doesn't go because it's linked, because my Insta is linked to my business page.
Gotcha.
Linked to my personal. So it does. So it goes to my like, Boston Belle Fit like business page stories or whatever, which no one is looking at. But yeah, so so that it's in my main wall stories, I just, whatever I use. And I use a lot of the same photos in what I'm posting on Instagram and then what I'm using in my group as well. So I do kind of duplicate those things, but I have a little bit of a different Insta persona than I do in my Facebook group. And so those things are a little bit different, purposefully so, and they kind of reach sort of a different network. And then what's on my wall is a little bit of a combination of all of those things. Anyway, so I want to know how you have 8 parties booked.
Yeah, Christy, did you see the comment? By reach out, say?
Yeah, I from the day I started, I've sent, well, I was doing like 5 to 7, and then I realized that way too many people were interested. So I've gone to 3 to 5, depending on how inspiring I'm feeling that day. And I actually like kind of stopped doing it the past couple days because I've got so much response, and now people who didn't even respond or even like acknowledge that I messaged them are now messaging me from when I first started.
And this is in Facebook or this is in Instagram?
This is in Facebook.
Okay. And those people are in your group, or they're just
not well, some of them, yes. Like I try to touch base mostly with people who have either liked something or that I've semi been in contact with, but there are some people that I just randomly think of, and I'm like, I'm going to send them a message.
And what do you say in your message?
It depends on the day. It depends on how I'm feeling. I'm just genuinely authentic on, hey, if it's someone I was thinking about, I'm like, hey, I was just thinking about you. I wondered if maybe you'd be interested in hosting an activewear party. I tell them what they can get from it and tell them it's fun. They can learn something new and try a new product.
And what I have found is, because I can see people saying like, I've done it, people don't bite. There are some people that have certain networks that are just prime for that. And just a simple like, hey, like, are you interested in doing this? Do you want to host a party? I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if it's like what it is, but there are just certain pockets and certain networks that works like 100% of the time, right? And it may not work immediately, but it works. And like, people are like, sure, I'm in it. And you'll have, another rep who would use the exact same message that you're using, do it, 10 times a day or whatever, and like just wouldn't get bites on it. And again, I don't know what the difference is, but I've seen that for a really long time, which is like, there's just, again, it's just certain networks, certain target audiences, whatever it is, that happen to be super, super interested, and they're very motivated by the Hostess Rewards. And I think that that's like an awesome thing. And then there's other people that are like, if I like it, I'm going to buy it. I don't want to host an event. I don't want to burden people, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I only ever send messages out when I feel good. Like when I'm feeling positive and when I feel like there's no reason that they shouldn't be doing it, that's when I send out those messages. I think a lot of it is mindset, but that's just my personal journey.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so good. We had a question from Elle. Do all of the affiliate links show up on your site? And if they do clients get confused?
Wait, what?
So like if you make a VIP link for someone, do they show up on your site, and do clients get confused? So they do show up in our site, like under parties, right, in the back office?
Yeah, I mean, they'll show up on your site. I've never had so many that I've worried that people would be confused. But
yeah, I mean, I always have quite a few open at a time, but I haven't had any customers feedback on that. They just search for, because I always put their name. So it'll be like Natalie's activewear event, or like Sally's activewear event, so they could easily direct their friends or their shopping.
What else?
What about like objections? Do you guys have troubles with like objections? Like objections from, I guess reach outs for customers or to join your team? Another good thing too, I was going to say, Aaron, too, is like addressing objections publicly. Like sometimes I'll post like in a story form, like I used to, whatever, I won't say the amount or whatever, but whatever was a lot for me to start up, or I used to think it was too expensive to start a business. And like, then I'll go on to share on what I was able to like to turn my investment into, because people have these questions and they may not necessarily ask you, but if you're addressing objections like through posts, people can relate to that, I find.
Yeah. I think the stories are a great place to use.
Same with
that.
time.
You can almost like pretend that people are like asking you questions when they're not, and then answer them. You know what I mean? Like you can because you can create like a whole storyboard essentially in the story, right? I mean, you can and some people have done that where they have created like using Canva and things like that. They've created like actual like storyboards where they will post, like Natalie Swenson does it a lot. I'm trying to think who else like does it consistently, but she will post, the first one is like, what is Zaya? And the second one is like about community. And then the third one is about like, the opportunity. Anyway, it's a story. It reads as a story. So as you're, clicking through it, you read it as somebody talking to you. And then, those are the kinds of things that you can reuse over and over and over again, right? Like you can post them at the start of every month. You can, post it, whatever it is. Or people will use when the starter kit changes, right? Like that's an opportunity to like put that in your stories and like, say a little blurb about it, or, I'm getting all these questions about like, what this is or whatever it is, right? Like you can like, no one knows if you're actually getting questions or not, right? So like you can use that kind of language though to sort of like answer a question that would be somebody saying like, I'm interested in that, but like I'm not going to do it because it's like probably too expensive, or like, whatever it is, right? So you can answer those no's on your own kind of preemptively. And I think the stories are just a like kind of a nice clean place to be able to do that. And you can create, again, kind of like a story out of it. And so you can put, a picture of the starter kit, and, then the next one can be, a picture of yourself talking about, why you're passionate about what you do. And then the next one can be, a picture of like a team to get, whatever it is, right? And you create this kind of like sense of what it is that you're sharing. There's no inventory, there's no overhead, all those kinds of things. And you can kind of build that into like a story format.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing though, the biggest takeaway is just like consistency. Consistent call to actions.
Yeah, agreed, always. And then just being patient with it too, honestly, and like trying to not be, hyper focused on, what everybody else is doing, right? Like everybody has their own kind of path, and everybody has their own pace that they do this at. And, there's people that are super, super successful that, spent the first year just sort of like laying some groundwork. And then, the second year was when they really, whatever, right? So, I think you have to kind of like, again, sort of stay in your own lane, create your own sort of brand, your own sense of like self and purpose, and also, know what your goals are and be really clear about what it is that you need to accomplish, because sometimes what you need is more sales, and sometimes what you need is more reps, and sometimes you need both. But I think being very clear on what the next stepping stone is for you and what that means, because sometimes, like I say, like it may mean like like you have plenty of personal sales and you've sponsored some reps, but like if your reps don't get kind of going to where they need to be, like you're stuck wherever you are, right? So again, like you have to kind of like look at your whole picture, your whole business, and especially after you've started sponsoring people, to kind of take that apart and to see where you need to focus like your energy and your effort, right? And or it may be that you have a team that's grown but your numbers need to catch up to them, right? Like you need to sell more. And so yes, like recruiting is great and whatever, but like you need to sell some products so you can have the numbers, right? And so again, I think that's where it comes back to understanding like what the numbers are, and again, what your next goal is, so that you start out the month with like a real clear plan of like where you need to like invest your efforts. And so maybe recruiting is really important and maybe that's what you need to focus on, but maybe you just really need to work on sales, and then understanding that a lot of times recruitment can come from sales, right? So like being kind of sales first and kind of building your customer base and like, increasing that can really lead to the recruitment piece in an organic way as well. So I think it's important to like kind of laser in on like what you need and what you're, kind of going for, so that you have like a really serious kind of like overview of like what those goals need to look like. And that tailors your messaging also, right? Which is really important because it really kind of helps you hone in on like what it is that you're trying to communicate to people and what it is that you're, what you're looking for at the time.
I was going to add in like a little side piece because it's been part of my like personal journey, and it's the mindset stuff. So I know you guys hear me preach this all the time, but I like focus like a lot on mindset, and I do a lot of affirming. So I affirm that, that recruiting is easy. I say that it's easy. I write it down. I affirm that I attract teammates. I work, like I do that stuff, like it's part of my routine. And that's just part of my journey, but I feel really, really strongly about that because when you believe in yourself, you radiate, like your body gives off that energy. I don't know if you guys believe in that, but like I'm huge on affirmations, and I feel it's a part of my personal journey. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there because we're always saying affirmations, whether it's I suck at recruiting, or I can't build a business, or no one's following me, or no one's doing this, but we don't know that that's affecting us, right? So I'm really laser focused on, I write it out. Recruiting's easy. People join my team every month. My team's growing, all that kind of stuff, like affirming that and like being really, really consistent on it, in case that speaks to anybody.
Yeah. I think that, like I always say, for me, like the mindset thing encompasses the consistency portion of it, right? And so like for me, and like, because I think everyone's brain works a little bit differently. And so for me, that kind of is more into like the type A way of like, for me, it's the consistent piece of it, right? Which is that I know, because I've learned now over the last 2.5 years, like I know that if I show up consistently and I post consistently and I stay true to my brand and I am like, really disciplined with what I do, like my business grows. And, this whole like kind of like pandemic and all of this has really like affirmed that for me. Because my business, not our team, not our whatever, which has obviously grown a lot, but my personal business has grown exponentially in the last couple of months. And last month I had my highest PV that I've ever had since I joined Zaya. 2.5 years later, in the middle of like, the world is shut down, right? So I know, like I have complete confidence, right, that if I continue to kind of keep doing what I'm doing, I'm getting more followers on Instagram. I'm getting more traction. It's slow, but like I can feel it. I'm getting more kind of like a random people joining my group that were from Instagram that I have then like kind of pulled over to Facebook and things like that. And I can feel that now, right? And I know that that's happening. And so I have this confidence that I know, like, if I keep doing this and if I keep doing that and like all these little pieces, then my business is going to continue to grow. And so instead of slowing down or instead of like kind of stalling out in the middle of all of this sort of like chaos that's happening, I've gone from having like, no in-person events, right? Things that I do a lot of them. I like them a lot. And so taking kind of all of that out and then still actually having more sales than I ever had before, right? And so that I know for me comes back into knowing that like if I do, and again, it's just consistently posting, consistently sharing stuff. Every time somebody orders something in my group, I thank them with an image, right? Like all of these different things. I send thank you notes. I have these different just kind of like things that I do, and I do it consistently. And I have seen that if you continue to do that, and you continue to kind of plant seeds and you continue to kind of like lay the ground, like it will become something. I just think you have to be super committed to it. You have to be super willing to like, ride the waves of like the frustrations or, the inventory's low or somebody needs something and we don't have the exact size that they want at the time, or we don't have, whatever it is, or like, somebody shopped with somebody else and like, how am I gonna get them back as a customer? Anyway, all of these different things, there's so many things that can happen day to day that make you like super frustrated. And so being able to like have the mindset of being able to like ride the waves of that and know that like if you can do that and if you can kind of sustain the roller coaster, that over time if you look back at it, like your business will grow. It does grow. And I've always said this, like we have had the legging drought in the fall of 2019, and we've had like all of these different things. Like we've had these inventory issues before. We've had when Canada first launched, it was a total shit show. Like we've had all of these things, right, that have happened, and everybody that like stuck it out and is still going they're super successful. So it's not for everybody, it's not perfect, but like if you kind of continue to like, again, show up, do your thing, do you make it you that people are connecting with, you will have success. And recruitment and sales and all of those things are all tied up into the same bubble, right? Some people may sell better, some people may recruit better, some people will kind of ebb and flow between the two. But you will have success, whether you sell a ton or you recruit a ton or whatever it is, your success may look a little bit different, but you will have success. Do you guys have other questions or anything? Anybody? Okay. All right.
Yeah, if you guys have any like topics too that you like want, then we could like make like certain topics. Like this one was like about kind of recruiting, but like moving forward, if there's like certain topics, right, Erin, we can
yeah, it's helpful, honestly. Like again, like there are so many things that I'm sure would be super helpful that don't occur to me at this point, that you kind of forget, like as you get further into your business, right, you forget, like so much of it becomes sort of like autopilot. And so you sort of forget like, oh, it would be helpful to like give more information about X, Y, or Z. And so with these meetings, like I'm happy to talk about anything. There's just times where I'm like, I don't really know what everybody needs or is helpful or whatever it is. So it helps a lot to have like, certain topics or certain things that we can like focus in on.
I did that poll, so maybe we can draw from that.
Yeah, for what people are wanting or needing. Super happy to talk about whatever. The nice thing is that we all have our own strengths, right? We all have our own things that we're like really good about, and like other things that we're like not as good with, right? And so I think that that is another thing that's like the beauty of being in a large community, is that there are people that are on our team that are like rock star sellers, that are rock star recruiters. There's some people that do both, like, you know, whatever it is. And so I think it's really great to be able to kind of learn again and get inspiration from them. So if there's things that you're like, I'm, you know, really good at X, but I'm not so good. Like, I'm not a great recruiter at all. I never have been. It's not my, like, it's not where my passion lies. Like, I really enjoy selling. I really enjoy connecting with people. I really enjoy networking. I really enjoy selling, and styling and all of those things. Like, that part is like really fun to me. And I really enjoy mentoring. So I'm really excited once people join. I really like that process. It's the like getting people in. It's just like it's. I find it to be a beat down. Like, it's not my thing, right? It's very important in our business, so we can't not do it. But Courtney really enjoys it, right? So we all have our own various things that we like kind of bring to the table. And I always say, like, find a business buddy, you know, find somebody that, like, you know, can kind of help keep you accountable, that you can kind of like bounce ideas off of, whatever it is. I think is super, super helpful, either on our team or not. And again, that you can go to and be like, hey, like, all right, what are you doing for X, Y, or Z? Or like, what messaging are you using? Or mentoring new recruits. Yeah, for sure. I think that is, I think that is a topic in and of itself that I would love to have a more systematic approach to it. Personally, I only know this because on the flip side, you know, Courtney and I talk about, like, I get a lot of random questions through the day from people about stuff that I'm like, oh wait, why don't you know this? Yeah, no, not tonight. But yeah, I do think in general, I think it would be great to have a system, like a team system. I also think it would be great to have a team system for recruiting, like the way that the other like big teams do, where they do, you know, kind of like a recruitment call that they invite people to join. That, you know, and that's something that I'm like happy, you know, for us to do as a group. It's just like with a lot of these things, people have to like show up. They have to commit to it, and they have to be present. They have to show up. So that's kind of where I get stuck with the like onboarding process of like how best to like capture that. And then recruitment as well. I do think that there's a lot of people find a lot of power in seeing large groups, right? And so if they see a call that's got like, you know, 65 people on it, and they're like, ooh, like I literally like a month ago, there's a friend of mine that does Beachbody, and she was like, we're doing free workouts like on the weekends, like just come and like do a Zoom with us. And I was like, okay, right. And I like hopped on this call or this Zoom workout or whatever, and there was like 250 people on it. And it was actually a recruitment call disguised in a workout, like fully, like 100% is what it was. And so within like 3 minutes, I was like, okay. But they had so many people on this call. And I was like, whoa, like, well, that's, you know, something, right? It just, I think that there's power in numbers. And I think particularly with the recruitment one, if people want to do that, you know, once a month or once every 2 weeks or whatever it is, I'm super happy to do that. But I do think that what has held me up with it is that if there's like 6 people on a call, it just doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't have the same power. And so that for me is kind of where I get stuck. And then
Christy has a good point there.
People flake and quit, and
Yeah.
frustrations talk.
And I
Yeah.
think that can be frustrating for reps, like when you bring on someone, because it's like you've worked hard to get them, and then they kind of flake off. But I like your mindset, because they have to want it for themselves, right? And what I do, I'll just touch quickly on like onboarding, but I send out a welcome video. So first, I make sure they do first 3 things within the first couple days is set up their website, set up their event, and set up their launch party. And then once they get that, what I've been doing lately is helping them run their launch party, like getting right in there and doing like live videos and stuff for them just to kind of get them their feet wet. But if they don't meet me there, then I'll check in a few times, but then after that, I don't ask anymore because I feel like we can't drag people along. So I like Christy's mindset in that. It's like you can only do so much, right? They have to be willing.
Yeah, I do. I think there's having a system to it that's more organized currently would be helpful for sure. And I don't know if that's, you know, a weekly like onboarding call. I don't know what that looks like. I think we struggle with time zones and competing interests. People are working, people have kids, people have all these things. So actually getting them on live, I think is a bit of a like boundary. And you know, then Courtney and I talk about this all the time, like between Zaya Life, Zaya Gals, Zaya Canada, Zaya Bells, and 1,400 messenger chats, like there is an abundance of resource and information. And there is more training than I can even like follow half the time. And not to be like when I was a kid, but like when I started, there was 40 of us in Zaya Gals. Like there was nothing. Like we made it up as we went. And so I struggle a little bit now with like people that are like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I mean, just do something. Like there's like 86,000 ways to slice this lemon. Like pick one and just do something, right? So
I think just like getting them into their launch party is like a big step for them. And then as they build confidence with like, you know, customers, just getting their feet wet. Like even if you have to like run their, not necessarily just run it, but like help them run it. That's kind of something I never used to help new reps run their party, but it's just kind of, especially with all this time that I have off, it's the past month, that's kind of what I've been doing because I have all this extra time. And I find it just helps them kind of get, you know, a little bit more confidence when they're not doing it alone.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think these are all like great topics for sure. And I would just say the new people that flake most likely were never going to be like, I don't know, people that are going to like bail, and it's going to happen all the time. People are going to jump in, jump out, you know, whatever. You're gonna have it all the time. My recommendation on the people that bail is to try and capture them as customers. That's what I do, and I've had a lot of success with that, and I've actually had people re-enroll as well. So that happens too. I've had people start, do nothing, bail, become customers again, re-enroll. So, I mean, you just never know. But I do think if people pop in, they're interested, they're excited, and then they bail, is to try and capture them as customers for you, because something good can come out of it, and you may be surprised at how much, like, at least shopping volume you'll get out of someone like that.
Kayla has a great question, and I love this question because I think a lot of us can relate. So Kayla lives in a small town where there's at least 6 reps. So how do you hot and cold market and try to get recruits that don't live in your town? I love that question. So I am like you, Kayla. So I live in like a small retirement community. There's like 6,000 people, but it's mostly like elderly. And I also have I think 5 or 6 reps too in my town. But yeah, none of my customers live in my town, and 99% of people who joined my team are people across Canada that I've never met. So like the power of the internet and online and like page. So I use my like page a lot. I like to dabble in ads. I know that's not for everybody. But the second way is I'm always building my network on my personal page. So I think I have another training video about this on how to grow your cold market. I can send you I'm not sure if you watched it. I can send it to you. Yeah. And that's kind of how I've built my entire business. In that video, I go over that. I'll send it to you because that's like a legit question, and I think other people have mentioned that too. That how to reach past their town, right? Do you have any insight on that, Erin?
I can hear you, and then I can't hear you, Courtney.
Oh, did I cut out? Did I?
For a second, I didn't hear your last sentence.
Did you have any insight on that?
Oh, for getting outside of your town?
Yeah.
I don't do anything in my town. So,
so you're all online too, right?
Everything is like, yeah. I do a lot of networking with, there's a ton of people in my local area that are in direct sales already. And so I do a lot of networking with them. But I don't try and like recruit them. Mostly because they're already with other companies and they're fairly invested in what they're doing. But this is where I use a lot of the like networking groups and things like that. So that's how I meet new people. And, you know, historically I did a lot of stuff where I would do pop-ups at like gyms and studios and things like that. I don't know when that's ever happening again. Which makes me sad because that was like a big portion of like what I used to do a lot of locally. And that's how I met like a lot of people also. So it's just kind of a bummer. But you know, for me, that all comes back to, again, growing your presence on Instagram, growing your presence on Facebook, you know, making connections, friends of friends, networks of networks, things like that. You know, connecting with like party guests and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of those things, right? That's where I feel like you get outside of your, and again, my like warm network is not a thing for me. It's just not, it never has been. So I just sort of like piggyback on to, you know, I meet somebody who does something, who like connects me to somebody who, you know, it's all of that kind of like leapfrog thing.
Christy has used ads, so that's good. Lots of attention that way. Just reading the comments. If there's no more questions, then we could probably hop off, eh?
This is good. You guys send more ideas because this is super helpful.
Mm-hmm. To get them into the private group. Yeah. I think once you get them to your, from the like page, yeah, that is a tough one. I try to like talk about how you're going to serve them in there. Like I run giveaways. You probably do all that, eh? Just to get them over. Even getting them to like your personal page and then to the like page, because some people, they like to like get to know you better and then they'll hop in. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's good. Just telling them that, you know, I have giveaways. I have, you know, even if you run other challenges, you know, other challenges that might help you, might kind of interest them on hopping into your group. But that's good to always get them into the group. Yeah, so should we sign off?
I think so. This was good, you guys.
Yeah. So what I'll do is that cold market video, I'll just repost it in the team page since other people might want to see it too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that sounds great.
I think you'll find that one helpful, Kayla.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess we'll
have a good night. We'll see you guys this week.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.